If you really want to enter the stablecoin business, crack your business model forward and think what happens if the rate is cut to like zero, right? Can you sustain this stablecoin business for a whole bunch of other reasons apart from yield? Don't build for the economic reasons, build it for really good other reasons. And if you do, like, there's a lot of opportunities out there.
That's Raagulan Pathy, founder of Kast, our first ever two-time guest. In this episode, Rags shares recent developments behind his comprehensive stablecoin custody application. Kast is developing a two-part system, a better-than-bank app with traditional finance capabilities and a non-custodial wallet featuring Kast's own M0-powered stablecoin, built for payments and yield-bearing savings. In this episode, we discuss how these two pieces fit together into a defensible on-chain business. Here's our episode with Raagulan Pathy. Season 4 of Stable-Minded is powered by M0, the stablecoin platform for builders. M0 recently crossed 230 million in native stablecoins minted, helping builders turn payments from a cost center into a core revenue center. This season, we dive into how companies like Kast, Playtron, Wormhole, and others fit into this dynamic ecosystem. With M extensions, builders can fully customize their stablecoin programs, and with their orchestration APIs, builders can scale minting and redemption freely. Tune into episode 1 of this season to meet Luca and Greg, co-founders of M0. Stable-Minded is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Rags, you're our first repeat guest, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. How long ago was it? Maybe 6 months ago?
It feels like forever ago, but it was not that long ago, just a couple months ago. So as the second guest, for those who may have not listened to the first episode, highly recommend you do so. One of my favorite episodes for sure. What I loved about it was how well you painted the narrative of really where we are in relation to where we could be in a year, 2 years, just in terms of the data, how small of the crypto industry at large even represents the stock market today in the US. Like, that fact was really interesting, I found. So go back, listen to that episode if you're listening to this and you haven't, and then meet us back here. The sponsor of this season, as you know, is M0, a company I think you sort of teased last time we were talking that you might be having some fun stuff coming out soon with them. So here we are. Would love to just double click on those things strategically that you're excited about that are on the horizon. And yeah, I'll pass it back to you for an intro before we do that.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name's Raagulan Pathy. I'm the founder and CEO of Kast, and Kast is set out to be a stablecoin neobank in very, very simple terms. But we're rapidly evolving what that means. So look, the version 1 of Kast was extremely simple. You load stablecoins and you spend it on a card, a credit card of sorts, right? And the reason why it was so simple was that there's just huge demand, especially in emerging markets, but also from crypto native people, to have a quality card product. They really missed having a quality card product. And so that had a huge amount of traction. We grew pretty quickly out of the gates and still are growing very, very fast. And but at the same time, you have to evolve the product into something that has wider appeal. And we have a brilliant product and engineering team. I think the last episode I loosely explained what our future looks like, but I think now we have even more articulation around it. So maybe I can sort of like step you through that a little bit more, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Really excited for this. Why don't you, before we dive into what's next, it would be helpful briefly just to share some of the learnings that you've gone through. I think you've probably, given the roadmap that you've already achieved, or in the time that you've been building this V1 of Kast, I'd be curious what you learned or the things that you found unexpected about you, that maybe it's a user habit or a infrastructure dynamic. Like, I think a lot of people are probably where you were a year ago today. I'd be curious what you'd say to them, builder-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll split this conversation generally between what I call the fintech side and what I call the on-chain side. So from the fintech side, we're building, even though we're building on stablecoins, effectively it's a fintech product. It's cards, virtual accounts in the US and soon in other regions as well. And also, things like payments, Swift, in many ways very similar to Revolut or Wise, which are sort of pretty well known. So the first thing I would say is that running, if you've got a card component, running a card program from scratch is extremely difficult. Like, it's so complicated how Visa and MasterCard structure it. They have a whole bunch of nuances and reasons why they structure it the way they do, but I never had an appreciation as to how complex it actually is. And so I would say to anyone who's building one, like, be ready, because you can land yourself into a lot of hot water if you don't put in a lot of risks and controls early. We've luckily had a great team, so we've managed to. But that's big. The second thing is that when you try to be global, there is just so many attack vectors that you get. I think for crypto people, you think it's just from people who are doing, trying to attack your crypto assets. And of course, we have security around that. You even get, like, the thing that surprised me the most is this whole SMS pump fraud thing. I don't know if people have seen it, but
give us an overview of what that means.
And so essentially what happens is that in a whole bunch, like, telcos are global and a whole bunch of emerging markets, you have to often put an OTP verification. And for a whole bunch of reasons, your forward, people like Apple require often it needs to be a phone verification. In a whole bunch of emerging markets, will create premium phone numbers. And so essentially, if they if you send them an SMS, then they get rev share on the SMS. And so if you have any weakness in your vectors, they'll find that weakness and they'll just pump you for SMSs. Because obviously, in the US, it might cost you, let's say, $25 US an hour to have a person working for you. But in some of these countries, it only costs $1 or $2.
Did this happen? Did this happen to you?
100%.
What did that look like? So tell me, like, if you're open to sharing, like, you just woke up one day and you looked at a dashboard and you were like, shit, we have all of these SMS, and we're like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, we have an auto top up with Twilio, who's our partner. And so what happens is that Twilio will top up, and then you just see the sudden surge in top up. And one day it'll be from country A, and then next thing you know, it's from country B. They will continue to rotate countries until they find where the weakness is, where they can sign up for a premium number. And they have people, so they can do a lot of very manual stuff that you and I probably wouldn't do it, because we're like, well, we need to get $25 US an hour. I could just go and get a job. It's not worthwhile. But if they can employ people for like $1 an hour, 50 cents an hour, there's a lot of things you can put effort into and to create. But yeah, we got it. I mean, like, we got it on relatively small scale, and we've got an incredible security team. So like, every time it happens, we can lock things down. And even Twilio doesn't have, and other partners don't have the full guards. And it's like, if you put overly secure, then people can't get SMS when they're legitimate, and it's very, very difficult to track down. Over time, we've built a lot of tooling around it, so we don't really get that anymore. But yeah, you'll get attack vectors. I think the stat that I heard was that last year, X, formerly Twitter, had $60 million on this kind of fraud, effectively. So even with all this, they get attacked with it. Anyway.
So you weren't expecting that.
Wasn't on the list of things. So you're going to get, like, the more global your ambition, the more peaceful, your vision of, like, let's really help the masses of the world that are unbanked and underbanked and all that other good stuff. Well, reality will come along and hit you and say, well, there's also a lot of people up there who will take advantage of it. And it's actually funny, because now when we see others trying to build it, just to sort of close out your point, we go and look at their platforms, and we've actually shared some of our learnings with others proactively, because I'm a very open builder, and we see that others don't have these guards up. And I'm like, oh, guys, like, I messaged a few founders and said, look, you need to really look into this. I don't want you to get hit. You may not raise a lot of money. We raise quite a bit. So if we get hit with a 20 grand bill, it's bad, but we can get onto it and we can survive it. But some people haven't raised money. Imagine you only raised $500,000 and suddenly got like a 30 grand Twilio bill. Could be quite bad, right? And so, we're trying to share a lot of our learnings positively with other builders. I think more builders enter the space, the better. But yeah, you're going to get a lot. You're going to get a lot of surprise.
It's refreshing, first off, just to see real life application, real usage problems. Like, it's just, for this industry, it's a refreshing thing that you're just, because you have usage, because you have a real application with real users using this thing at scale globally, those are, good problems to have. Not everyone makes it even that far. So where is the platform? Give us an update, or like, from where you've been, what is available now versus what is coming next or what is on the horizon, just to give people maybe an understanding of the current product versus the future product. What's the difference? Is there one? And then I want to dive into really the idea of making and building your own stablecoin after that.
Sure. So our version 1 product was simple. You deposit stablecoins like USDC, USDT onto our platform on multiple chains, and then you can spend it on a card, right? So extremely simple. Our version 2, which is the product as it is today, is what we call better than a bank. What I mean by that is that you've got virtual accounts, so you can send money to a US dollar account and also send money out that way as well. It'll also be Swift enabled soon, so you can send money internationally. You've of course got the stablecoin piece, but we also have things like payment links. So if you're a remote worker, for example, you're a remote worker in Brazil and you're working for someone in Denmark, you can send them a payment link because they owe you $800 for your freelance work for the month, and they can pay it locally by card or payment transfer and land straight in their account, right? And so the payment links is live. And then the final thing we have also is like QR code based payments as well. And so if you're in certain countries, you'll be able to use the local QR code system as an alternative to using a Visa or MasterCard. And we call this better than a bank because if you have a bank locally in any country, you don't get a stablecoin component, you don't get a payment link component, you probably have the QR code component for your country locally, but we have an international one tying in a lot of players internationally. And in this way, that's sort of like the evolution of our product from, if you want to be crypto, we can be a bridge in and out of crypto. You can spend it, you can do all that, but you can also use the product very widely, even if you're not in crypto. And really this widens the market and takes advantage of stablecoin rails for non-crypto people as well. And that's super exciting for us. For the people in the US, we are going to be building a business version for SMEs as well. And that's underway so that if you have an LLC, actually, I think it was a lot of feedback you gave and a bunch of others gave that, even if you're a 1 or 2 person company in the US, you'll have an LLC, you want to have, FDIC insured accounts to get your money in, and you'll be able to do a whole bunch of things. But imagine you're a new startup in this instance in the US, you've got some funding, you want to hire 10 people, 2 of them are in the US. That's pretty easy. But then you've got like 4 in India and then 2 in the Philippines and 2 in Nigeria. You could basically start a Kast business account. You could tell all employees to have a Kast account, and then essentially you can pay them, directly from within the platform in stable coins or in cash.
I absolutely need this product. Like, if you built that, I will use it. We personally right now, I think the biggest friction that we have, like we are definitely the SME business in the US that wants this. So live feedback mid podcast would love that, because most of the time, we're getting half stablecoins coming in from clients, vendors, people that pay us, and then the other half is fiat. So you need the account to do both and interoperate with both easily, which sounds like you're solving for. But the biggest pain for me right now is, I think, dealing with the reality of payouts to vendors or team members and having everyone in a single place, or saying, hey, like, if you're going to be on our team, like internally, we pay you this way. Just like you would sign up someone to their Paylocity account or ADP account. Like, this is where you go to get paid if you work with us. Are you seeing that trend being a really interesting growth theme from the businesses or users you work with today? Like bringing their own people into the account?
Yeah, our thesis is that it definitely is, right? I mean, if you look at companies like Deal, I think they're doing, they're approaching somewhere, well, maybe they've crossed $100 billion in annual volume in payments. And a lot of that is people coming from the US, paying people globally that are in other countries, right? And so I think the opportunity is enormous, possibly much bigger than just even crypto. And we're seeing, but no one's built like an all-in-one, right? Like they're either on one side and they support stablecoin payments, they're like a Deal, but they're not necessarily like a bank, a neobank for SME built on top. Some are starting to compress it and come together. But yeah, we want to be the, if you're a 0 to 20, let's start company, or maybe 0 to 50, you start your LLC, you spin up a Kast account, you tell everyone to get a Kast account. Your life is extremely simple. And we'll put some basic accounting integrations and expense management, etc., within there as well. So yeah, that should be
Love it.
coming in Q3. We're working on it. We want to come up with a simplified version. We're actually going to use it for ourselves first and foremost, and then nothing like dog food in your own product. And then we'll have some people on the trial as well to give us feedback. So
Love that.
yeah.
Sign me up.
We are the top of the trial, Drew. And then on top of that, we have what we are building out, which is our on-chain feature. And this is really a stack. And this is completely around stablecoins. And the stack looks like the two stablecoins, which I'm going to talk about in a second, as well as a wallet and a swap service, and eventually our L2. Now, I articulated this in the last podcast, but now we're actually much closer to this going live, or the first components going live. Firstly, the USDK and USDKY, which are our two stablecoins, decentralized stablecoins, would be out in the market. We're building this on top of M0 Labs. USDK is a payment style stablecoin, and USDKY is a yield bearing one that's linked to, backed by treasury rates and upstanding treasury backed sort of rates. This is all built on the M0 platform. The reason that we chose M0, firstly, Noel is a good friend of mine. We both used to work at Circle. But when you look around, I think, at the different stablecoin issuance companies, ultimately where we are today with stablecoins in 2025, where we're going to be in 2030, I think are two very, very different places, right? And I think there's going to be two, by the way, like, I don't think USDC and USDT are going anywhere. They're going to be fantastic companies for a long time to come. They're going to still hold for the next several years a substantial amount of the market share. And so just to be clear, I'm not like delusional that these two are not going to be kingmakers for quite a long time. But at the same time, there is this need for applications to have application-centric stablecoins for a whole bunch of reasons. For us, the initial need was just tokenizing the deposits and putting it on chain for users, so they don't so they deposit money, but they can see it there on chain, which is, I think, very valuable from a non-custodial or reassurance for users that they can see their money on chain. And I don't think anyone is innovating in the long run or has a better team than M0. I'm not saying that just because we actually partner with them. We actually looked at a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of people trying to do it, but it's just the sheer depth of like the stablecoin and DeFi knowledge and team and capability that they have and the way they're thinking about it, frankly, is extraordinary. And so I think it makes sense for us.
Let's if you're open to it, I'd love to peel this back a little bit. This is going to be a big theme for us this season, is just the idea of, why would you want to build your own stablecoin? Why do you have two of them? What does that mean? And why M0? From, at least for you, you've gone through a process where you've made a pretty big decision structurally. This is like, in the internet world, it's like, where is your data hosted? Like, it's a big deal. Like, it feels like. Tell us, I guess, first, why do this at all, in your opinion? Why not just use USDC or existing stablecoins? What's the incentive for you as a founder to do this in the first place?
Yeah, so I think it goes into the my core belief is that there is stablecoins. Your stablecoins are awesome, but there's some things that are not awesome about them, right? So the first part is that the concept of having to swap and bridge chains as well as multiple stablecoins is not in the interest of the user experience. The user just wants $1. They don't really care, for the most part, whether it's USDC or T, or if it's on Ethereum or Solana or Tron or whichever. And so that needs to be fixed, right? The second thing is that currently there's a user experience as well as cost friction in that as well. Like, if you're on most exchanges and you want to swap a USDC for USDT for the average consumer, you're often paying somewhere around 1% or 0.5%, which is quite expensive. It's friction, expensive friction as well.
I think people don't realize that you can have the same asset on a different blockchain, and it's almost as if it's the same asset. I don't think people realize that. Like, can you speak to why that's a problem or why that's complex? I think Circle, probably when you were there, and I know that we're going to be having Wormhole on this season to, like, specifically what you're talking about, to sort of reveal more of that part of things, like the interoperability. But was this something that you saw directly at Circle? Because I feel like they really championed that solving that issue really well.
Yeah, so Circle has this awesome product called CCTP, Cross-Chain Transfer Protocol, which, by the way, is like one of the best innovations outside of USDC. They rightfully did champion this. But the issue is that it's largely an institutional platform, right? So, this means that, I don't know what the latest is, maybe USDC is supported on 15 blockchains, let's say, and CCT is available on, I don't know what the exact number is, call it 5 to 10. And you can essentially swap one for one between, for example, Ethereum and Sol, no problems. And without the normal problems that you have to do of either paying for a swap or something else, right? Which is a great step, but it's institutional, it's not retail. You still have to swap between USDC and USDT and PYUSD and other upstanding stablecoins. And so we're trying to fix that, right? And the way that we're doing it is we are releasing a stablecoin wallet. This is separate to the Kast app. It's a Kast stablecoin wallet. And so we're still in the final process of engineering this, but you can think about USDK as essentially like a bucket, right? You put into that bucket USDC, USDT, whatever you want. And at the back end of it, you get one USDK. It's $1 is $1. And you can take out whatever else you want later on. So you can deposit $1,000 in USDC. You can take out $1,000 in USDT. Or maybe you want to take out $1,000 USDC on another network. And so essentially when you bring stablecoins into our wallet, it will be held as USDK. And then it transfers out using, being whatever you want. So we're trying to extrapolate away as much of the confusion that comes with multiple stablecoins in a wallet swap. Underlying it is essentially like a swap sort of experience, and in a stablecoin wallet as well.
What makes you need to currently today, and I know you're familiar with Dakota, this reminds me a lot of what they're doing with Bridge. And I'd love to know maybe how you see the differences there between what Bridge is doing with DKUSD, which if you use Dakota, which we do, that whole experience is within the dashboard. Like it's not a separate app I need to go download. So I guess two-part question. One, why is it separate? Like why is it structurally needing to feel outside of Kast? And then how would you compare as you were exploring the M0 option versus maybe others like Bridge who have this capability too, in a sense?
Yeah, so by the way, we're also great partners with Bridge. But I think one of the aspects is that M0 solved this in a DeFi-style experience. And so it's completely programmable and automated. And so the main reason for having a separate wallet initially is that we want to have a non-custodial version, right? On which we'll build future services. But this is essentially, think of it like Kast app as your stablecoin enabled fintech app. And then you can think of like Kast wallet as your non-custodial wallet. Now, the difference with our non-custodial wallet is that we're focused on stablecoins primarily, right? And I'm going to explain a couple more things as part of this, right? But yeah, the concept of it is that you can deposit different stablecoins, take out different stablecoins. There's a swap. Our target rate for the swap is 0.1%, so it's extremely thin. And if you're taking out on the same coin, like if you deposit USDC, you take out USDC, there's some sort of true-up mechanism so you don't get charged for that. And that's kind of like the experience that we have. We'll be holding it as USDK powered by M0, right? Now, a couple of the other things you can do with this wallet as you start building it up is that there's a lot of people who are looking for DeFi yields. And when I say DeFi yields, I mean like safe stablecoin DeFi yields, ones that are tried and tested. I would put Aave into this bucket. I would put potentially USD into this bucket as well. And people are looking for a clean experience where they're saying, hey, like I would actually want higher yields, but I don't want necessarily the noise of having to do trading with meme coins or other coins that you would have in like an experience like a Phantom or others, right? This is a dedicated, ultra clean stablecoin experience. We acquired a wallet as a service company at the beginning, and so we have this experience in-house. We have our own wallet as service tech. And so, we want it to be the ultimate place where you hold stablecoins. What we found over time is that increasingly people hold more and more money with Kast, the app, but also a lot of people are depositing there to spend versus a lot of people hold stablecoins. I think the stat that I got from a partner recently was that there's a similar stablecoin wallet, which doesn't have the simplified experience, but they have an average of $30,000 as a deposit within the stablecoins amongst active users. It's very high because there's people that just want to deposit stablecoins and search for yield, from other places. Not the crazy stuff, but I'm talking like 6-7% sort of stuff, and then markets maybe more. And eventually we will evolve that wallet into a full on-chain banking experience. What I mean by that is that imagine, you have in the future, you connect it to your Apple Pay, you go to a merchant, the merchant also has some sort of stablecoin acceptance, ideally built by Kast. You tap pay and you're out of there. But instead of that being a Visa or MasterCard, it's actually like a stablecoin to stablecoin payment. And what we would do underneath in the future, this would probably come Q4 or Q1, is that we would have an L2, which essentially would allow for all the things that you need to happen in that sort of experience to happen extremely fast. So you need like super fast finality. You need things like whitelisting, because often like a merchant doesn't want to accept money from anyone, just in case there's like a sanctioned wallet or something else. You need things like reversals, like you may pay them and then they may screw up, but they may say, I'll charge you wrong, I need to reverse it. Or sometimes, and you need things like authorizations. Like if you're cashing in Uber, often Uber will, authorize you for $30, the trip ride is $23, and then they release the other $7, right? So there's a lot of things in payments which are more advanced compared to like standard stablecoin payments. Standard stablecoin payments are kind of dumb in some ways, because it's just, how much do I have to send you? I have to send you $25. I send you $25. It doesn't have all the payment stuff around it. And so this is a whole stack, the stable coins underpinning it, the standard one, and the yield bearing, which has a swap facility in it, is effectively built in. And the yield bearing one, the wallet, and then the wallet will evolve into a full on-chain experience underpinned by an L2 in the future as well. So, that's what we're setting out to build. I did articulate in the last one, but now you know it's real because we've got engineers actually building this right now.
It's awesome. And again, when is the anticipated timeline for any of this? Is this like May, June timeline?
I would like to say June. My engineers, actually, I'd like to say May or April. My engineers may have other opinions. Look, we can always ship the product. We've got a test bed of it up already. But I think it's when we hit the market, we want this experience to be super smooth. When you go to a current wallet, it looks and feels like a wallet. Yes, they've abstracted away things like gas fees. By the way, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff in that, like abstracting gas fees so you don't have to hold the native token. There's a whole bunch of things that we're doing to like smooth out the experience. But even like when you download most wallets, they look like a wallet, right? With the UX and UI look similar. It doesn't really need to look that way. Like you can abstract away that experience. So it's just like, hey, I deposit stable coins. I see dollars. I can move it between different ones, for higher yield. And I can pick either a low, medium, high risk, or I can pick like, a menu of all the other ones. And I just click swap and choose the amount and it happens, right? And then I get the yields accordingly. Getting that user experience to be silky smooth is one of our biggest challenges, I think. So we will want to release the product quickly, but we will hold the product until we get it out, to the right place. People will be wowed by the experience, similar to, I think, how they were relatively wowed by the Kast V1 experience when that came along.
Do you still think that spend and card is still a huge primary moat and focus for you guys? Or
100%.
has that become maybe less of a strategic priority and you're trying to maybe build more of an ecosystem around that? Or does that still feel like the thing that is strategic for you?
So 100%, because like the people who need a bank are billions of people. The people who need a stablecoin wallet are millions of people. And so that, to be clear, there's still a huge difference and a huge problem to be solved. And we have a whole team around risk and compliance and our partnerships with banks and PSPs, et cetera, to enable that. So there's no slowdown and focus on that. It's just that we saw a problem statement here and we feel that in a long-term roadmap, I think last time I articulated that, stablecoin supply is like 1% of US M2 money supply today, right? What I'm trying to think through is like, what happens in 2030, right? So if I give you a stablecoin, for the most part, 99 out of 100 people won't have stablecoins, and so you off-ramp it, you give them cash, right? But imagine a world in 2030 where it's like 7% or 8% of M2 money supply. Stablecoins are like $1.5 trillion, maybe approaching $2 trillion, something like that. Then suddenly it's like 7 to 10% of money circulating in dollars is in stablecoins. So it increases the chance that the person you send it to will have stablecoins already, and they have no reason to take the money off and into cash. They're just like, oh, I'll keep it in stablecoins because I know that there's a pretty good chance the next person will take stablecoins. And then you take it out further, 2035, 2040, and that's like, I think by 2040, you'll be like, maybe 30 to 50% of people will have stablecoins, and most of you just stay in stablecoins. So we have to build for that future, and we could wait, but we think, starting to build now and understand it is super important. The other thing also is that because it's non-custodial and it doesn't need as many employees because it's all built, automated DeFi wallet style. So it scales really, really well. And people also deposit more. So our go-to-market thesis becomes that you have this stablecoin wallet. The stablecoin wallet will run ahead and have hundreds of thousands, millions of users. We've got hundreds of thousands on the bank side, but it scales much quicker. And eventually a percentage of those people will start using the Kast app itself. And we'll have some linkages between them, being able to send money easily between them. So that will become essentially like, people are adopting Kast really quickly, but this will become huge fuel for the Kast app because people who don't want the Kast app because it's not non-custodial or a whole bunch of other reasons can use this product. And then eventually, if you follow the tree, the Kast app becomes the fuel for the Kast SME and business version as well, right? So it's a funnel effectively. Eventually to, complete that story, we will add aspects of the Kast app within the non-custodial product. There's some people that want a card that's non-custodial. And so we'll be able to retrospectively add a card to the wallet as well, which would require you to go from being non-custodial to also adding some KYC to be able to access the card. But that's the experience some people want. A lot of people don't care; they're happy with a centralized experience, but some people want a non-custodial.
Yeah, I think last week I was seeing a LinkedIn thread that got pretty viral or got a lot of attention of why Kast. We've been publishing some stuff on cards and on-chain stuff, and I think Kast was getting a little bit of a spotlight on it for being custodial. And I know we talked a lot about that last episode. And so there's definitely, and I know that there was some chatter around that lately, and there's definitely going to be a small but powerful group of people that will be very happy that a non-custodial option has hit the radar. So they'll be happy, they'll have what they wanted. I also think it's a really powerful thing. I mean, you see this working out really well at Coinbase. When I was there, like Coinbase Wallet was this kind of like silly little side project for a long time, and like all of the big crypto wallets kind of laughed at it behind closed doors. And you saw over time that the custodial regulated business of Coinbase became such an amazing on-ramp and driver of growth for the Coinbase Wallet app, the non-custodial self-custody DeFi app, which connects really beautifully to the custodial one if you would like it to. So it's a super great model, and I like how for you, maybe some people will start with the app, but I would bet, and this is my belief and this is my story on chain, but like I think most people will start with the easiest thing, the best user experience, which they probably are doing now, and then the power user minority will find their way to more of that non-custodial route if they really care about that, which we've been going in the opposite direction for, I think, too long, which you believe too, which is so. Yeah, I want to pivot, if you're okay with it, to specifically the user experience around USDK or it's USDK and then USDKY, correct? Both of them?
Yeah, that's correct.
One is used for payments and settlement use cases. One is used for yield-focused savings or treasury. I'd just love to know more about like the differences between them, and if you see which one is the yield-bearing one again?
The KY one. So you can think about it conceptually within our app. When you deposit money, it's like cash or checking, right? And so you're depositing stablecoins or you're depositing cash, which gets converted to stablecoins, but it lands with us as USDK. And essentially it's like a tokenized deposit at the beginning. Deposit we're tokenizing is not it is basically the stablecoins, right? Like we're tokenizing it and representing it on chain. Most custodial ones won't actually do that. They'll just be like they'll do an audit, but we'll actually represent it on chain. And that's good. We still have a few problems to solve to make this happen, but that will happen. And then
Is
imagine
this where M0 comes in, like this part?
exactly,
Where does
exactly.
M0 fit?
M0 powers the underlying stablecoin, which we issue on chain. But the great thing is we've been working with them around solving a lot of the problems, such as like liquidity. How do we get multiple, how do we bring in assets on different chains, allow it to go out on different chains? That requires a whole bunch of liquidity management, which are not trivial problems, they're extremely hard problems. Probably why no one's done it, because they're like, this is super hard. And but we think can be solved, beautiful user experience. And so, yeah, so we're solving for that. And then you can think of USDKY as underpinning the savings account. If you've got a cash or check account, as you call it in the US, you've got $10,000 there. You said, I'm going to put $2,000 in savings. You just flip 2,000 into the savings account. It's making you your treasury backed yield, 4% give or take right now. And
in the institutional world, this is like the cold storage version. It's like you have the hot wallet and then more of a cold storage option is kind of how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I think it's just like as your check account and your savings account. That's
like
really
you have a spending utility, like in people, this is all psychological. Like people just think this way.
Yeah.
So you're just saying you're going to have a designated area where it's more of a savings. This is more concrete. This is cold. And that's where the yield bearing one comes in. Okay.
Exactly.
Is M0 or the technology that you're building, I'm always interested where people come in to fit and help. I think yield bearing stablecoins in our business as our business has evolved, even since we last chatted, we really think of ourselves as helping people navigate this conversation. And we think media and podcasts like this is a great way to do it. But we're going to be coming out with a lot of things around yield bearing stablecoins, because I think uniquely in this industry, it's an incredibly complex and misunderstood topic, and it will continue to get messier and messier as I think more people, which they should, launch their own and try it. And there's going to be a flood of these things out there. So when you think about the yield side of it, and you even mentioned like safe yield or good yield, what does that mean in your opinion, and how have you achieved that versus bad yield? Like what would the difference be for those not familiar?
So I think optimal design for a yield bearing stablecoin, which is, I would say, ultra safe, is that it's treasury backed, right? Like, I mean, you can't get anything safer than US treasuries, and it's like fully backed by US treasuries, right? And so that, I think, it should be whatever the Fed publishes minus a few bips for people to operate that stablecoin, and which is pretty thin. And that in itself is an innovation, because for most people to have the full Fed funds rate is quite difficult within a bank experience, right? So I would say that's like ultra safe. And then I would say that there is the ones which are safe. So these are sort of like tried and tested platforms like Aave, where you can deposit stablecoins into, and people are using it for yield. Often, this is getting very crypto, but people are depositing BTC or ETH, and they're borrowing against that BTC or ETH in stablecoins because they want to do something, they want to spend it, they want to invest in something else, or whatever, and they pay an interest rate for that that's often above the Fed funds rate, varying depending on how much demand and supply there is, and that a lot of that yield gets passed to the user. So those tried and tested platforms, I would say, DeFi platforms, I would say, are approaching the point of being safe, and have shown that they've got all the things built in to make sure that if BTC moves the wrong way, it's liquidated and all of that good stuff, right? And then I would say you've got call it funkier rates. And so you would see that there's DeFi platforms which are essentially offering you higher yields, more than 10%, really more than 8%. It starts getting a little bit, spicier, and above 10%, and it gets definitely like you don't get money for nothing, right? And these are pretty innovative projects, like including ones where they're financing maybe something in, a car company in Africa, like an Uber for Africa or something like that. There's like infrastructure, like real world infrastructure. A lot of them are financing, but there is some risk. Like if that company doesn't repay its debt, etc. Now it's done in a DeFi way in terms of like people are putting money together in chain in a pool to lend to somebody, and maybe they're lending to multiple people, so the risk is reduced and spread out. But there is some risk. The risk that you're going to get 15%, but there's going to be a default and you're going to lose some money as well. I think these are still in stages of experimentation. In a good world, you won't lose much, or the risk will be spread out. In a bad world, sometimes you might lose a lot of your capital. But yeah, so that's the full spectrum. Now, wallet, we'll offer the conservative, safer ones at the beginning, unless people are really screaming out for the other products. But I always do caution that there's no free lunch in life. And so if you are searching for 15% yields, maybe it's legit. And I think in the future, there will be legit products around this, but it's going to come with some risk as well.
Yeah. Which we've already seen in many ways. Yeah. So are you planning to give users practically the option of, I'm imagining I'm going into my Kast account. I want to move my half of my treasury into this cold storage. I keep calling it cold storage. I know it's so stiff, old institutional word. Savings, yield-bearing stablecoin. Are you going to give me the ability to have choice and kind of flexibility on where that yield is parked? Or is it something that you're going to kind of white glove on your side and find the best? I've seen a couple of these companies lately in stealth. I'm talking to some of them, and I've started noticing that there's some interesting innovation going on around this point, like handling that piece for the user. Are you thinking about doing that yet, or is it more like I choose my own path?
So on the Kast app, the main app, we would like to simplify it. You don't go to your bank and the bank doesn't tell you, here's the 10 underlying providers for your savings account from, it's the same, it's 4.1 or whether it's 4.3, but you've got 10 choices. That's a pretty clumsy user experience. So in the main Kast app, it's simply you put it into savings, you know what the rate is. It's treasury backed via our product. It's super safe, therefore, and you move on, right? But I think that there's a world in which in our Kast wallet, where you could actually have a choice of whether you want USDKY, whether you want Mountain Protocol, whether you want Ondo, whether you want Aave. And we're also working with a partner to potentially bring in, because you might want a blend of these and the rates go up and down, especially when you hit the DeFi stablecoin yields. And so we're trying to think of something like a low, medium risk, a high risk one with different rates. And they do the rebalancing and optimization around it. And so you don't have to think about, today the rate is X on platform A, and tomorrow I've got platform B. Imagine this partner is doing the hard work because they're pulling together funds from lots of people, and then they're just offering a low, medium, high risk rate. And then you just, as a user, just click the risk that you want and you get the rate, basically, and they do the hard work for you. So that I think is super interesting, and I think we'll be doing that, offering that as well.
What's the name? I'm curious. I was just looking at someone today doing this. Is this
Kiln? No, Kiln, which is a very well-established company already, staking company. They do this, and they had a version 1 of their DeFi stablecoin yields. They're on their version 2, and we're excited. We already partner with them for our Solana staking service and stuff, which is separate, which is sort of an experiment around PayFi. But yeah, we're going to be partnering with them on this, likely, at least for some of the yield options, which is exciting because I think they've got the institutional staking level of experience to be able to do this in a safe manner. We'd like to partner with others who are innovative, but I think with our customer base, using people that are very upstanding, have scale, and have a lot of experience about the good and the bad is important to us.
Yeah, and probably baking in some redundancy too. And as you make these decisions, you want to be committed and you want to be good partners, but you also want to be thoughtful and not have a ton of counterparty risk at the same time. So I could probably keep talking to you. I know it's early. You're getting your day started. I'm ending my day here in the States. I think we're probably a year away from maybe you'll be our first third-time guest, and we can talk about the complexity of the yield side of this. I think there's going to be hopefully this year, a ton of people flooding into this asset class through these branded stablecoins, people like you who've decided to build your own stablecoins. It's such a economics, especially for those yesterday and today who've been diving into Circle's S1 filings and just seeing all of the profit that's being thrown around with this business model, it's, I think, only going to continue to accelerate people choosing to go to M0 and issuers like them and partners like them to do what you're doing, because the economics are so great if you do it right.
I will actually counter that a little bit as our end. People that use a spicy end. So people are reading Circle's S1. They're looking at how much money is being made. They're looking at people are so focused on the economics of it, right? And the reality is that there's a bunch of providers who've been spun up to say, hey, if Circle's not sharing any economics or sharing a little bit of economics, if you use us, we'll give you 80 or 90% or some crazy amount of the economics. And the whole focus is on the economic side of things, right? But the reality is that no one is evolving the user experience or giving people, some sort of functionality with the product. And the second reality is that Circle and Tether have way more network effects than people understand. They think, I can just build another stablecoin and do it. But they've got licenses. They've got a huge amount of banking rails. They've got people using it. They've got people swapping it. It's in DeFi. And so I encourage people definitely to build more stablecoins, but I don't encourage them to do it for economics. Yes, the economics can work out in the long run, but what we need is actually innovation around the edges, around the user experience or use cases like payments or others. That's where we need the innovation, not just another stablecoin for the sake of economic capture. If you need to do that, you can actually go and do it pretty easily and have very little innovation today.
Couldn't agree more. I absolutely cannot agree more. I've been getting low-key frustrated because I have had so many people reach out to me lately, and I'm sure you have too, given your stablecoin guy status, reach out to me and want to talk about go-to-market, about their stablecoin that does nothing but be a stablecoin. And I'm like, I love the excitement, but to your point, it's not really about the economics alone. It's like, the most exciting thing are companies that have, I was talking earlier this week to a publicly traded company that does incredibly high volumes. They're a very old company moving tons of money in a very boring use case. Their website looks like it was made 15 years ago. Those are the companies that have the relationships, they have the volume, it's in the billions, like moving around. Those are the companies that it's like, if you just, the economics are there, but you already have such an opportunity to make the application layer better, the costs lower, I definitely get more excited about that group. Searching for utility, searching for applications, searching for really a business model is something you should do first. And then, in my view, go hit up M0 and do what you're doing, which you've done.
Yeah. And look, I was working at Circle when rates were 0.25%. And net of banking fees, you're making 0.1%. So I always tell people, if you really want to enter the stablecoin business, track your business model forward and think what happens if the rate is cut to zero, right? Can you sustain this stablecoin business for a whole bunch of other reasons apart from yield? And people think that it can't happen, but remember, Japan went through nearly 30 years of zero rates, right? And so, and that's why it's very hard to get stablecoin up and going in Japan. So that's why I highly recommend that people have such short memories. In Circle in 2022, 2021, rates were zero, right? Pretty much, right? Which is just a few years ago, 3 years ago. And so don't build it for the economic reasons, build it for really good other reasons. And if you do, there's a lot of opportunities out there. But anyway,
awesome.
Maybe
Great
more on
the
third podcast.
Well, Rags, thanks for the time. Always a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you have an awesome day.
Great. Thanks, man. I look forward to it. And speak soon.